Welcome to this lesson, Introducing LINQ, the Language Integrated Query. Warning, the following information may seem overwhelming at first. But relax. Once you see how easy it is using the wizards, it'll be okay. I promise. Let's begin with an overview of LINQ, the Language Integrated Query. LINQ provides a consistent approach for using a variety of different data sources from within our application code. Typical sources include database management systems, external files such as spreadsheet files, and other systems. Using LINQ, we can create, update, and delete records in those systems. LINQ is designed to cache much of the data used at any given time locally, so our code doesn't have to wait each time a record is accessed from a database server or a remote file or some remote database source, which could really slow things down. Here are the key components of LINQ, and they can seem a little bit overwhelming because there are so many of them and we have to learn them all at once or learn about them all at once. But don't worry, we're going to break it down as we go and it's going to become much simpler than you expect. So first there's the data source. That's the object that provides the data, such as a database. In the case of the example I'll show, it's a Microsoft Access database. There's a table adapter manager, and the table adapter manager is the piece that can save data to one or more tables in the data set. Okay, so for the whole data set, for all the different tables or files or whatever entities reside in that, the table adapter manager is the one that can write to all of them. Then there's the table adapter itself. The table adapter reads or retrieves and caches data to be used in the data set. It defines the data that is going to be included using a LINQ query. Okay. The LINQ query itself specifies the records to select in a data set and the order, if we want them in a special order, in which to present them. The data set is kept in memory as a local cache on the local PC. It's a portion of the data from the data source. If you are dealing with small amounts of data, it may be the whole data source copy, but usually it's just a portion of it. And the reason we copy a portion of it into local memory is then your application can present that data and scroll through that data very, very quickly. If we didn't do that, every time you wanted to go from one record to another record, you'd have to go back and make a round trip to the remote data source set, whether that's over a network drive or to another computer or talking to a server. And so that could really slow things down. So having the data set cached in memory allows us most of the time to run really, really quickly. Occasionally, when we come to the end of that data set, it'll go back and it'll grab another big block of data, pull it down from the server, and the data set can scroll. But in general, it helps us to keep things moving very, very quickly and allows our application to perform in a really snappy manner. Okay. Then there is the binding source. So once I have this data set available to me, I need a binding source object in order to connect it to the data-aware controls. And most of the controls that you've been working with, like the text box and whatnot, have a capability we haven't explored yet, and that is they are data-aware. When they're talking to a remote data source, we can use the binding source to help us to manage that, to scroll through the results, to add new data, and to delete data. And all that can be done without having to add a lot of code manually. It's all kind of built for us automatically by using these intelligent LINQ objects. Lastly, there are additional LINQ components, and these are our data-aware controls. So probably the one we'll use most is the data grid view control. And the data grid view control displays data in a customizable grid, sort of like a table. And so we'll have rows of records and we'll have individual columns of fields, and it will allow us to scroll through our data much as you would through a spreadsheet or almost like a word processing document. It's very easy to move up and down and back and forth. There's also the binding navigator control, and the binding navigator control is used to navigate through data, designating the currently selected record. That's the one that would be the object that we're going to delete or modify or edit in some way. It can be configured to include buttons to delete or add records, as well as additional buttons and controls for other data-related tasks, and you can even customize some to do things you might imagine doing unique to your own application. Okay, so the binding navigator control scrolls us up and down, allows us to navigate through the data set, and the data grid presents it to us so that we can view it and make modifications to it. Well, that's a lot to take in. Whew, are you stressed yet? Don't be. Let's take a break and see this in action. You're going to find it's much simpler to work with than you might imagine. Let's see if we can reduce some of your apprehension about dealing with LINQ and LINQ queries by actually building an application with the wizard. And what I'd like you to focus on for this demonstration is just an overview. I will give you more detailed lessons separately about each individual step, but just see how easy it is here to get started and to create a data set and an application that is able to use that data set. And so I'm just going to create a brand new project. As usual, it's a Windows Form application. I'm going to call it LINQ Demo. Okay. And so far, everything the same as what we've been doing all semester long. Here's your first new piece. And again, I'll show you in more detail in another lesson, step by step, what we're doing. We're creating our data source. I'm going to use a database data source, and the data set I'm creating is going to link to an existing Microsoft Access database. I've got one created over here, the TAL distributors. Open it up. The connect works. Tell it OK. And the defaults are all fine. Make a local copy of it. Sure, that's fine. And we're good to go. And I would like all of the tables in the database. And the tables appear. Okay, now we need to get into all those heady things, the table adapter manager, the data aware controls, all that. The easiest way to do that, look, if I want to work with the customer table, if I just drag it onto the empty form, the wizard kicks off and great and wonderful things happen for me automatically. Okay, so I now have data grid control, and that control is all bound to my customer table adapter, and the table adapter manager has been built. It's given me a record navigator, so the custom binding navigator is there. The customer binding source is all built, and there's our data set all represented. So now I almost instantly have a pretty full-featured data entry and edit form. Let's run this and see how it works. All right, so here's the records from the database, and I can jump to the end, I can jump back to the beginning, I can navigate record by record, forward and backward, or I could also click on them or use the mouse. I could add a new record. I can let's grab one of these and delete a record, and then I'm all good to go. So that really is pretty simple. And let's see what's been added for us and what these are, what these elements are doing. Okay, so the first is the data set. And the data set grabbed a big chunk, in this case, the entire customer table, because it's a fairly small table, but it grabbed a big chunk of that data that I'm going to be working with and cached it locally. And that way I don't have to wait while my every record that I want to edit, we have to go back up to the server, pull it down, display it. Then the user wants to scroll to the next record. We don't have to repeat that. So we have a local cache of a whole bunch of records that we can then edit and update, modify, add new records. And so when we do, okay, so if we make a change, we want to make a change on the data set that is going to be reflected back in the original database or whatever the data source is. Remember, that's the job of my table adapter manager, is going to do the updates for me. I also have the customer table adapter. So table adapter manager, notice that is not named for the particular table I'm working with because it can work with all of the tables on the data set, or on the data source, I should say. The customer table adapter is going to define the query of what records I want and how they are to be ordered. In this case, I've gotten them all and I didn't do any special ordering on them. Later we'll see how to modify a query that will say, do you only want some of the records? Do you only want some of the fields? And in what order would you like them sorted and presented? Okay, so we'll learn about LINQ queries in an upcoming lesson. The binding source represents the object to which I can bind my controls. And so the data grid view that was automatically added for us is already bound to that control. And then I've got the binding navigator, and that's doing my navigation on this particular customer table, the customer table adapter. So as we run backward and forward through it, I can add and remove these features. So if I didn't want, for instance, didn't want to provide the user with the ability to delete a record, I can remove that. Same thing with saving or modifying records. We can set it so it's all read-only, and we can reflect that in the control here. And then I can also change the look and the way these buttons are displayed, or if they're displayed. So we can customize the navigation. So really pretty simple to get started. And again, I can go back and look at my the notes I have furnished with you with, or your textbook, and say, okay, what are all these pieces that were built for me automatically? What do they do? And now if I want to customize them, how do I get into, and as you're used to, there's the property manager, and so we can go into the property manager and change them. So we can look at the table adapter manager, we can edit what's included or excluded from the data source. In the data set designer, we'll be able to modify the queries, what's selected and how it's ordered. If we go into the customer table adapter and edit the queries in the data set designer, and so we can just deal with it piecemeal. Even though there's all of these components and all of this apparent complexity, the wizard builds it for us pretty easily, and we get a pretty workable solution right out of the box. And all we have to do then is go back and sort of fine tune what we want the features to deliver. All right, so hopefully that takes some of the sting and the stress out of this. I know there are a lot of new terms and a lot of new components being thrown at you all at once. Play with it, rerun the video, follow the steps to create your own, and I've got some more detailed instructional videos coming up. Reference those to get into the fine print and the smaller detail of working with this thing that we call the Language Integrated Query, or LINQ. This concludes the lesson.